Hi, my name is Steve Rahi. I am a principal engineer focused on management technologies. Today's discussion will be the first in the detailed sessions related to Azure ARC focused on servers, right? We did the introduction in the last session, which kind of focused on all of the components of Azure Arc for servers. Well, not even all the components there, all the ones that were obvious from the console. So today we'll focus on specifically digging into the first of those capabilities, and that is update management through Azure Arc. So to kind of guide the discussion, here's our agenda, very similar to the normal kinds of discussions or the typical kinds of discussions we do here. What are Azure Arc updates? Why do we care about updates with Azure Arc? And then specifically drilling in, what are the requirements to set this up? How does this work? How do we go through configuring updates? So this will be very familiar for anyone who's deployed updates. The process here is not going to be foreign. It will just be a different way of doing it with advantage for sure. Then we'll see those updates apply, at least on Windows, and we'll wrap up. Right now, before we get into this, I just want to remind. So even the phrasing of the question could be inferring something different. What are Azure Arc updates? Azure Arc, there are no real differences in the update process with Azure Arc. Azure Arc, the entire focus is to be able to leverage the Azure control plane against servers that exist outside of Azure, right? And so whenever we talk about update management with Azure Arc, what that simply means is that we're managing updates on your servers, physical, virtual, wherever they are, in Azure, not in Azure, but enabling that non-Azure management by connecting them with Azure Arc. And so that's really all we're talking about, right? So I wanted to be clear on that. So what are Azure Arc updates? Well, again, we focus on servers with Azure Arc, being able to extend the control plane from Azure to non-Azure servers, wherever they are. If they're in your data center that you own, if they're in a third-party cloud, the Amazon cloud, the Google cloud, the IBM cloud, whatever it is, right? If they're in a physical server, if they're a virtual server, running in Hyper-V, running in VMware, doesn't matter. Anywhere those servers are, if we Azure Arc enable them, we onboard them to Azure Arc, then we can manage updates and other things, as we'll detail, through that, right? Now, in the first session, I walked through how to enable a server to be joined to Azure Arc, or to Azure Arc enable a server. So I won't do that now. I'm assuming that's understood. But that's what it is. And again, multi-environment, doesn't matter where it is. We can connect to it and extend, right? And I put Azure here as a question mark because one of the things you will read in our documentation, which could lead you to a conclusion that I initially thought was the conclusion, but it's not, is that you cannot use Azure Arc or you cannot Azure Arc enable a server that's running in an Azure virtual machine already, right? Which seems a little bit weird. Why would we have Azure Arc and be able to manage servers outside of Azure, but not be able to use Azure Arc to manage servers within Azure? And the answer is really simple. Those servers that exist in Azure already have access to the control plane that Azure provides. And so all of these things that you can do against servers that you manage with Azure Arc, you can do these same things with servers that are already in Azure. You don't have to do anything special to make that happen. You'll see that as we go through the session. A number of servers that you will see in the consoles that we walk through will be those that are native to Azure. Now, I'm not doing anything with them, but you'll at least see that they are there and that I could actually do it. So think of this as a single process that will allow you to manage every single server you have, no matter where it is, right? Azure, non-Azure, it doesn't matter. It is that single unified approach, right? And that is one of the reasons why we care about it, is being able to bring the consistency. So if you've gone to the effort to establish an update process for those virtual machines running in Azure, then you can now extend that process to machines running outside of Azure. And that would go for all the other Azure Arc capabilities for servers. whether it be policy management or monitoring capability or whatever it is, and then roll that forward to the other capabilities of Azure Arc, the Kubernetes, the SQL management, and so on that we haven't gotten to yet, and we get the power of this to extend management across uh, your systems wherever they are, right? And again, scope Windows and Linux. So that's another really compelling reason is with a lot of the tools that we have that customers have used for years, it really is limited to Windows. But Windows is not the only player in data centers at all. And so being able to have a way to manage Linux, one of my customers has a good number of Linux servers. And the way they manage those systems is really not to manage those systems at all. They really don't have a process, for example, to apply updates to Linux servers, right? And so this may be an option for them to be able to bring sanity to that. Another really interesting option for Azure Arc, and really this is more of an update management kind of thing, right? The update management is the tool that we use to manage updates, and we can make it available because of Azure Arc. But update management has some really compelling visuals, if you will, about how updates are being deployed across your environment, statuses, different things. And other tools that we have certainly have good reporting and help you get a handle on those kinds of things. But some of them are more geared toward IT and not so much geared toward the snapshot at a glance kind of level of how updates are rolling out. And I think the dashboards in update management are pretty compelling, right? To let leadership understand pretty quickly how things are going, right? So those are a few reasons as to why. Now, starting to get into the details of specifically updates for Azure Arc. So what are the requirements to configure this? Well, I've already talked about all of these requirements in the introduction session. So I'm not going to belabor the point on all of these again, but I do want to highlight a few, right? So the first thing is all of the server Arc requirements. All of the requirements to onboard a server into Azure Arc are required here. Why? Because you have to have your server onboarded in order to manage updates on that server using Azure Arc. Then you need a supported operating system. Again, none of these are different, but these are important to highlight. You need to be running Server 2008 R2 or better, right? 2012 R2, 2016, 2019, 2022, on we go, right? As long as it's a supported Windows server, we're good, right? Both desktop and server core experiences are supported, and Azure editions are supported if they're running as a VM on Azure Stack HCL, right? Linux. So a good number of distributions supported on Linux. We can work with Ubuntu or CentOS or SUS Linux enterprise servers, Red Hat, Amazon Linux, Oracle Linux. So that is a good smattering of Linux distributions that a lot of organizations are running. Now, in terms of specific configurations that you will need, you need to have the Azure Connected Machine Agent installed on that server. Now, again, do you need to worry about it here? No, because in order to use update management, you will already have to have onboarded your server. And when you onboard your server to Azure Arc, the Azure Connected Machine Agent will be installed. And so it will be there. Also, the log analytics workspace will almost certainly be there. We don't list it as a requirement to Azure Arc enable a server, but in practical terms, it is a requirement because certain components that you might want to leverage for managing those servers, like update management, do require the log analytics workspace. So it is a requirement. Again, that is probably something you're already going to have because you've probably already done that whenever you onboarded the server with Azure Arc. And then to work with that log analytics workspace, you're going to need the log analytics agent running on your server that's being managed with Azure Arc. And then finally, Azure Automation is a requirement for sure, right? You will see that whenever we go enable update management, it is done through the automation account. So it is a requirement. But there are updates to the update management piece where some pieces of it still require the classic portal, still requires Azure automation, and then newer portals, which I'll show you, do not require Azure automation in the same way, right? So we'll see those as we go along. So how does this work to be able to deliver updates and so forth with two servers that are managed by Azure ARC? Well, very simplistic diagram. Right? We have Azure ARC, and that is something in Azure. Through Azure ARC, we've been able to onboard our Windows servers, our Linux servers. And now we have an array of options available to us to be able to apply management against those servers. So one of the components in Azure is Azure Automation. Azure Automation is linked to update management right here. And so by communicating with all around in these Azure services and being able to use Azure ARC as the connection to be able to deliver those services out to our non-Azure servers, that's how the whole process works. Again, very simplistic diagram, but hopefully kind of joins that together for you in your mind. All right. Now, the fun part and where we're going to spend the rest of our time configuring all of this in Azure and then actually seeing it work. So let's pull in the portal here for Azure and see what we see. Here it is. Okay, so here's our Azure portal, right? And let's just start by looking for log analytics. Come on. Log analytics workspaces. And so here's my log analytics workspaces. So here I can absolutely use the log analytics workspace that I've already got created. I can do that if I want to, right? I don't have to do that. I can add an additional log analytics workspace specifically for update management and the Azure ARC things that I care about, whatever. That decision is really up to you and whether you have a suitable log analytics workspace. If you do, great. We can use that. If we don't, then okay, we can create a new one, right? Up to you. And so if you need, I've already got some log analytics workspaces created here, right? Several of them actually. And so if you need to create one, then the process to do so, there's a number of ways to do it. You can do it through script. You can do it through the UI. So this is not really intended as a discussion about here's how you create your log analytics workspace. No, one of the options though is to just hit create and then walk through the wizard that will come up shortly. Oops, sorry, I did not mean to do that. Let me get the browser back in place. Okay, go through the short wizard that is created here to tell about what you want. So do you want to add it to what subscription, right? And then what resource group within that subscription might you care about? So maybe this one. Give it the name, which I don't really care about. And then next to tags. Tags are things that you can use to uniquely identify maybe the purpose of your workspace. In my case, I don't care. But so then I'd review and create, and then this would check my configuration to make sure it's okay, and then I can go create my log analytics workspace, which I do not care to do because I've already got my log analytics workspace created. So that's one thing you need. Now, the other thing you need quickly is an automation account. Automation account. There we go. I clicked on the wrong thing. The UI was too fast for me. Automation account. Come on, don't be silly. It's not searching for me. Let me go back. Automation. All right, fine. Let's go home. Automation accounts. There. Click on it. Okay, so I have an automation account, a couple of them actually created. So the same thing. If you need to create a new automation account, then you would just go through the wizard and fill in the information about your subscription, about your resource group, if you want to take it down to the resource group level, the name, again, blah, and then you'll go forward. Okay, fine, blah, blah. Okay, and then you'll go forward to next and answer some questions about where you want that to work. Right? Is it system assigned? That's how you should do it by default. User assigned, whatever. And then networking, whether you want public access or private access. I use public just because it's easier and it's my lab. Private is what we recommend. Here are tags again. Then you would click next to review and create, and you would be off to the races in terms of getting your automation account created. Once you have it created, then that's where you would go to enable update management. Right. In fact, let's just do this for a minute. I should have not canceled out of that. So I'm just going to go in. I'll just pick some values and put in demo or demo blah. There. Click next. Right. And I'm just going to take the defaults. Click next. Take the defaults here. Next. Next. And then we'll go ahead and create this. So we'll pause the video while this is getting created, and then we'll come back just to show you that the deployment is in progress, and I'll come back in a sec. Okay, so that deployment succeeded. Didn't take too long. So let's just go back to automation accounts here, and we will see that account is there. Right now, why did I want to do that? Because now that I've created this, now that I've created this, I'm going to click on it, and on the left-hand menu, you're going to see update management, right? So update management is here. So this is where you go enable update management. And so this is the wizard that you would get, or the UI that you would get, right? Where you would select your log analytics workspace. And so it is going to be in this location, the same location where you are, where your automation account is created. You need to have your log analytics workspaces available there. If you don't have one there, then this will not let you move forward, right? And then you can have them in whatever subscription. So I've got a couple here. So I'm just going to use the one I just created. And I'm going to select one of my workspaces. Doesn't really matter, right? Let's see. I guess it does. Let me select another. Oh, it's already linked to update management. Let's see. Well, anyway, you get the idea, right? This is where you would go tell it what workspace to use, and that workspace needs to be unique and not linked to your other update management instances or automation account or whatever, right? So those are the rules, and so you go create this and link it, and I've already done that. But I just wanted to show you this process, because now if I go into one of my other automation accounts, in fact, let me just delete this because I don't want it here. I'll delete it later. Delete it later. So if I go into one of my other automation accounts and then go into update management, come on. Okay, good. And then go into update management, you will see that it is configured now. So this update management is configured and linked to this particular automation account. And we're not going to use this UI really at all. This is a UI that we could use to add in different machines. And so, well, actually, that's not true. We will use this. We will use this UI. Let me explain just for a minute. So you saw the process of going through, and you saw the process of getting this all linked up, right? You need the log analytics workspace. You need an automation account. You need to go into update management and select the log analytics workspace, and then it will go through and link things together. That's when you'll get a UI like this, right? Now, what is this UI doing? Well, so one of the things you can do is use this UI to add in or configure how you want machines to be added in to update management. So you can here's documentation on how to add a non-Azure VM if you want to. So this just takes you to a documentation link, and this will talk about some of the Azure ARC options and so forth. Or you can just set up routine management of machines that might show up in your tenant. So enable on all available machines, on all available and future. That's what I'm doing for my lab. So as I add things, they just become available for use with update management. So this console is not actually managing the updates on the machine. This is managing whether those machines are part of update management. So if you don't have them as part of update management, then they're not going to be visible in the update management portals that we'll see in a minute. Or then you can enable only on select machines. So whatever you want to do here, this is how we get things started in the update management portal, if that makes sense. Okay, so with that enabled, let's move on to actually focusing on the updates management or the update management part of this whole thing, right? So back in the portal, now we're going to go to update management. We're going to you can go navigate to it however you would like, but since this is an Azure ARC focus session, we're going to navigate to it from the Azure ARC portal. Again, you can get to it however you want. I could just go to update management here if I wanted to, and get to this portal. So this is a portal we will see. Not going to go there yet, but we will see that portal just to show you. But let's go to server and Azure ARC. So this will give me a list of all of my Azure ARC enabled servers. Dang it. Quit doing that, Steve. This will give me a list of all of my Azure ARC enabled servers. You see I have several of them. So this is for the SQL discussion we'll do later. This also is for a SQL discussion we'll do later. This is also for SQL, so we're not worried about those right now. This is the one that I have for just update management demo. And then I also have this Linux server for update management demo. So I have onboarded the Linux server. I can use it with update management. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on the Linux server because I am not what I would consider a Linux, a very good Linux admin, right? So I got it working, and we'll see some things about it, but we're going to focus on the Windows server for certain things as we go along through here. But this is going to show me all of my Azure ARC enabled options. So one thing I want you to do is take a mental snapshot of this screen or screenshot or whatever you choose, right? Because I mentioned earlier, because one of the questions comes up a lot, can we use Azure ARC to manage Azure VMs? No, but again, that's not the point. Quit it. See what happened here. That's not the point. The point of Azure ARC is to provide Azure management to systems that are not Azure systems. And so the better question is, can we use the components for management that we see in Azure ARC with our Azure servers? And the answer is absolutely yes, right? This is going to show you the view of the servers that have been onboarded with Azure ARC. But when we get into the update management portals, you're going to see servers that are just native Azure servers that show up alongside. Sorry for the spoiler, but just to make sure you understand, this is not saying manage your Azure servers in one place, manage your Azure ARC enabled servers in another. No, you manage them together, but you just have to onboard with Azure ARC to get the management of those servers. So enough about that. Let's jump into here and show you the options. So this is a Windows server that has been enabled for Azure ARC. We have all of these options available, and I have update management. So I'm going to click on update management, and it's going to take me into the portal that I can then start to decide how I want to manage updates. And I'm actually going to click on leave the new experience because this is what you'll see, at least right now as of this recording, this is what you'll see when you first go in and look at trying to manage updates and figuring out what portal to use and so forth with Azure ARC enabled servers. Now, let me talk about one thing that I just said there for a minute. When I said which portal you want to use, well, that might stimulate a question of, well, why do I have to choose more than one portal? And the answer is this. You have an option, you're going to see in just a minute, you have an option of using 3 portals right now. And that does bring a little bit of confusion. Here's the good news. All 3 portals are geared to do similar things, right? You could use any of them right now. What simply this means is having 3 portals is that we are actively trying to develop this to give you the best experience. Whenever I started looking at this, even a couple of months ago, we didn't have all 3 portals. we had just the classic portal that I'll start by showing you that, right? And now we're adding on a couple of more, and they're in preview status right now to give you some additional capabilities that will just make your life easier. And so while I'm recording this, we're kind of in that phase where we have multiple options, and then ultimately we'll settle on one. But the good news is it's pretty easy to navigate through this. And also the good news is we're trying to give you the best experience you can have with these portals. So just bear that in mind. All right, so we're going to start with this portal. This is what's called the classic portal. Updates using automation, right? Uses Azure Automation and Log Analytics Workspace for the patching experience. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this portal because where I want to focus are on the other two, right? But I do want to show you this just as an example of one thing. So I'm going to go to the portal for update automation. And I have some good detail here. No problem. It's going to fill in. I can see a good dashboard of what updates are missing. Now, this is my lab. And so I only have one Windows server in here, one Linux server in here that are reporting up through update management, right? And so factor that in as you look at the list, but I can at least see the systems or the updates that are missing for my Windows server in this case. Now, why Windows server? Now, notice how I got here. I clicked onto the classic portal for this specific server. So that is going to show me the detail for only this specific server. If I were to go back to my list of Azure ARC servers, which I'm doing now, and we'll scroll down to my Linux connected server, then I can still go to this portal, right? Let me go down to update management. Again, here we go. I can still go to this portal, go to the classic portal here. But this time I'm focused on my Linux server. And so why did it do that? That's bizarre. Do I not have that enabled? I should have. That's weird. Hang on. Maybe I don't have the classic portal turned on for this. But that's okay. If I don't, I can still see this elsewhere. Let me try this one more time. Automation. Well, that's weird. I must not have connected that, but that's okay. The other portals will show me what I'm looking for with Linux. But the point I'm trying to make is with the classic portal here, you will see on the dashboard page the detail for the server that you have clicked on. So when I click on this one, I'm only going to see Windows updates. That does not mean that I'm not managing my Linux systems. What it means is that I'm focused in on this Windows server. And so that's the detail that I'm going to see in the portal or the dashboard in the portal, right? Now, I mentioned, belabored the point that I'm going to start with this portal just quickly, right, to show you one thing. And that one thing that I want to show you, I can either do with, well, let's just do scheduled updates. I'm going to schedule an update, right? And I'm not even going to go any further than this, but I want to call your attention to the pre and post scripts. So one of the things I love about this is we have an option to be able to work with servers that might be in a more sensitive configuration. Maybe you have a need to run a script on the server before you actually update it and get it ready for the update to apply the update, and then run a script on the server to take some actions after the update's applied. This classic portal allows you to do that. None of the other portals, unless they've changed it within the past few days since I was getting ready to record this, none of the other portals, the other two portals, have this option yet. It is planned to have this option also in those portals, but we just haven't gotten there yet. Again, those are still in preview, so actively being developed. But if you need this option, you can use it today. It's right here in the Classic portal. There's no reason not to use it. It's perfectly fine to use in the Classic portal. But it's the only place it's available. That's why I wanted to show you that option here real quick. Okay, so enough about that. Let's leave here. And I'm going to go back into this machine, and then we're going to go move away from that Classic portal and focus only on the other two for the rest of our time. All right, so going into update management. So I didn't tell you about the other ones though. So guest OS update, that's where we're going to go next. It's going to be the update management center that's in preview. We also have this thing for host OS updates. This is not applicable to Azure ARC, so it's only applicable to systems that are natively hosted in Azure. Right. So if you have some, then you might want to use this update. This is an Azure ARC enabled server, so it's grayed out, so we can't even go there. Right. But let's jump into this update management center portal. And this is going to give you, again, a view of the system as it reports in to to update management. This new view, it's going to focus just on this one server. So it tells me that I have 9 total updates. 2 of them are security updates. 7 of them are other updates. Scroll down, and I'll see what those updates are. Right? It's the same list that I saw on the classic portal. But let me go back away from this server for a minute, and let's just check the Linux server. So we'll go and look at update management here. And here we're going to be in the new experience. So now that I'm in the new experience, notice I actually see updates. Now, again, why did I want to show you this and stepwise through the classic portal and then now move to the newer portal? So in the classic portal on the Linux server, you see that I do not have a log analytics workspace applied. But with this new portal, I see everything anyway, right? Why? Because the new portal experience is removing its dependency on log analytics and so on to be able to get the job done. So that's just one step that you don't necessarily need to worry about. I mean, it's still kind of in a quasi state because whenever you set up the Azure automation, which is how you tie in update management and so on, you still need the log analytics workspace. But the point is, you don't really need it for your servers if you're using that new experience. And we'll see all the different updates that are available and so forth. Right. So I'm going to leave here and go back to my Windows server. Doesn't really matter, I suppose. But go back to my Windows server here and go back into the same portal. But definitely want to show you Linux as well as we work our way through this, right? Okay, so now we are in the new experience. So we want to spend some time walking through the options for the new experience, what we can do, and so forth. Now I'm going to so first of all, this lets me switch between the classic experience and this experience. Refresh is pretty obvious. It's going to refresh the console. So if you deploy something and you want to refresh the console and see what the status is, or you do a scan of your environment, you want to refresh the console to see what the status is, you can do that. Check for updates. So check for updates is going to trigger an assessment against one of your managed servers now. Now, this is one thing to also take a mental snapshot of, because triggering an assessment is done just on this machine in this portal. Well, that's kind of a pain if you want to trigger an assessment on a bunch of machines. You really can't do it here. You have to click on the machine, click trigger an assessment, then go back to the next machine, come back in, say trigger an assessment, and it gets a little bit cumbersome. A portal I'll show you in a minute makes that easier, but I want you to make a mental snapshot here so you can compare the difference. I don't need to do this now. I actually will do it in just a second, but to get started, I went ahead and did that before we started the recording. And then we have the option for a one-time update. So if there's maybe something out of band that you want to do on a server, or number of servers, whatever, then that's really what the one-time update is for. Scheduled updates, we'll also take a look at, allow you to set up update schedules for different managed servers, right? Notice I did not say Azure ARC servers, because here this applies to Azure servers and non-Azure servers just equally. And again, tie back to whenever we configured update management. In update management, you decided whether you're going to include all the servers under that manage, whether you're going to include all the servers now and in the future, or only select servers. So that's going to dictate which servers show up here for management. Hope this is clear, and I know I'm pulling in a bunch of things, but hope this is clear. Let's look at one-time update for just a minute. So I'm going to walk through this. I am actually going to deliver updates to our servers. I'm going to do a real update here. That's my plan anyway. So I see by clicking, again, I got here by clicking on my server, my Windows server. And so that's the one that's in scope. And I see here, there's 9 updates that need to be applied to this Windows server. And so I can click on this Windows server. Don't need to. The only reason I would need to is if I want to remove it. But this Windows server is going to be included as I go through this process, right? I can also add machines. And so now look at this list and compare it to the snapshot I asked you to take earlier. And you're going to see there's additional machines here. You'll see that these are Azure virtual machines, right? As well as my Azure ARC enabled machines. So this is an ARC enabled server, an ARC enabled server, Azure VMs. So that's what I mean. Azure ARC is a vehicle to help you get non-Azure VMs into Azure. Once that happens, you can manage them right alongside the Azure VMs, not a problem, right? So I'm going to go ahead and include this Linux server and add it to the list, right? And you'll see that I have detail about updates that are available to both of these now, 9 for Windows, 21 for Linux. And I'm going to go forward next, right? And so now I have some choices. What classifications do I want? Well, I'm just going to use this for my servers. I do have a Windows server and I do have a Linux server in my list of machines. And so I do get the options for Windows and Linux all up, and I'm just going to choose those. Right? I'm going to add all of this because I want to go ahead and put them all on. Now here's another thing to point out. A lot of times, whenever you're configuring something in Azure and you're targeting it, you're going to be targeting it to groups of servers. That is not the case here. You're going to pick servers from the list, like I just did, and target those servers through a process like this. Now, this is a one-time install, so I'm just targeting 2 servers. But that's true for scheduled updates as well. So you can think of the servers and grouping them together the way you want to, but then whenever you set up the scheduled deployment, you'll want to do it in a way like this. So you'd pick and choose the servers. Think of group 1 has 20 servers in it, so pick those 20 servers for one scheduled deployment, then move on to another for additional servers, right, and so on. So it's not targeting groups, it's targeting servers, right, individually. All right. So the nice thing is once you do that, they can be recurring. You can edit them, whatever. So these are the different things that I'm going to have included. Right now, that's one thing I can install, and you can use these together, really. But I can install update classification based on classification. I can also include based on a KBID or a package that I want to include. So the real use case for this is think about the scenario where we might have released an out-of-band update. And maybe you don't want to take the time to trigger an out-of-band kind of right now assessment of all of your servers to see whether a given update might be needed, right, and reflect in the console. So you just want to say as part of your deployment, hey, include this KB. If it's needed at time of patching, just put it on, right? And so this kind of helps you get ahead of the assessment time frame if you don't have a current assessment showing that it's needed, therefore you can't choose the update from the console, then this allows you to get that in regardless. And then here is kind of the other side of that. If you want to exclude a particular KB or package ID from the process, you can. So maybe you have in general the updates shown here, but you want to exclude something from the deployment, maybe. Right. And then lastly, if you want to only include by a certain time window, so maybe you only want things that are have been released as of 15 days ago, right, and nothing that's been released in the last 14 days or whatever, then you can accomplish that here by this configuration, right? But this is the one that is probably maybe most interesting for most people, right, or the closest to what people have maybe historically done through something like Config Manager or whatever, right? So, But those are the options. All right, so I'm going to go on through this and click next. So then I get to choose what reboot options. Well, I'm going to let it reboot if required, or you can choose never reboot or always reboot or whatever. Now you're going to give the amount of time that you're going to allow in the maintenance window. So I'm just going to say 480. Well, I guess 235. So that's the longest. So how long you're going to give Azure to be able to accomplish the updates that you're asking it to deploy. I'm going to click next. And so I'm reviewing this and I'm going to click install. And we're going to go out, and while we're continuing to talk, hopefully this is going to take action behind the scenes on these two servers and start to deploy the required updates, right? So that's creating a one-time update. It's done. You can't go edit this again because it's one time. And so it's just going behind the scenes and working to install these updates on the managed machines that I chose, right? Schedule updates. So this is where you would put your recurring configurations that you want to have in your environment. And setting this up is really similar with some added things to what we just did. So again, I'm going to say what subscription, what resource group I want to include in this. Let's just say this resource group, right? I'm going to give it a name. So demo scheduled deployment. Let's make sure we don't have any spaces in there. Okay. And then details about the region and maintenance scope. So there's options here. This is where you want for Azure ARC and Azure Managed VMs. There's a couple of others that these don't apply to Azure ARC. And since we're talking about Azure ARC, we're not going to talk about these. But this is the one that's defaulted, right? Reboot settings. So here's where you configure your reboot settings. And now you can configure your schedule. So I'm just going to add a silly schedule and say that it starts way in the future. So somewhere down here, I'll start it here. And yeah, I give it the maintenance window, how often to repeat. So I'll say once a month, right? That's fine. And you could configure Patch Tuesday in here if you wanted to. So repeats, here's the Patch Tuesday. On the second Tuesday of the month. Now, this alone is very interesting, right? Because I've had a number of calls with customers who are trying to figure out, using some of our other tools, how do I actually schedule for the second Tuesday of every month? Because depending on the month, it might be a month with 5 Tuesdays, might be, you can't really say second week so easily. And so this gives you a really easy way to say, hey, it's the second Tuesday, right? And so on. So offset. So how many days after that do I want to run it, if any? When does the date end, right? If I want to add an end date, I can for the schedule. I don't really care. And so I can save this, fine. So I've got the schedule configured now. So I just go on forward through the wizard. If I can get the drop downs to where, there we go. So go on through. I can choose now the machines. So I do have the one machine that I started with. I can add more machines if I wanted to, like I showed you. I don't care to for this. And then next to the update. So here I'm just choosing include update classification. That's the same window we just saw. Now it's only going to show me, I thought it would just show me Windows, but it does show me Linux too. So that's cool. You choose what you want, include or exclude your KBs. And then the date range doesn't really apply to scheduled. And then we have tags we can review and create, and we're done. So let's see, I'll save this one. Review and create should validate without a problem. Go ahead and create that. And so that is a scheduled deployment created and ready to go, right? Well, wait, Steve, I made a mistake. I need to change something. How do I go edit that? I don't see anything out there that I can go edit. So it's in progress. It's not there yet. And so the answer is that's correct. It's kind of hidden where you would go see these configurations and be able to go revisit them and maybe change machines or change settings or whatever the case may be, right? So let me go back to servers. Let me take us back to that window where we just were. I think I clicked the wrong button. Here we go. And update management, and we'll get there in a sec. All right, so update management, here we are. And then we will be able to get back to the portal. All right, and we're back to the portal, right? So I just scheduled my update, no problem, right? And you notice that these are grayed out. Why are these grayed out? Because I'm actually in progress with these machines right now, due to the ongoing install server updates now operation. So I can't just keep injecting things over and over and over again because I have something in progress. The ellipsis gives us some additional options. So the first is update settings. So update settings will let me change a few things. The main one is periodic assessment that I would care about, right? And so I've got those three selected. And so I can go down and change my periodic assessment to every 24 hours. Can't do it more than that, but every 24 hours, which is awesome because otherwise it's going to happen when you manually trigger it or every 7 days. So this is probably one that everyone, at least if it's like Config Manager customers, everyone's going to want to change this to every 24 hours, right? You don't know when in that 24 hours necessarily that it's going to happen, but you do know that it will happen within that 24-hour period. Enabling hot patch and patch orchestration, these are not for Azure ARC enabled machines. These are for Azure machines only, and so I won't really talk about it, but I'll show you what these items are. Right? Again, patch options not available for Azure ARC. Maybe this one is. Maybe that one is available through Azure ARC. Haven't played with it, but that's what this is, right? So if I want to enable those, then I can. In fact, I don't want to enable all three. I'm just going to change mine to where I'm doing the periodic assessment and do it that way, right? And then click next, and so I'll have that out. And I'm going to add all of my machines, or the two. So I can say where I want that to be effective. So I'm going to add my Linux machine, and we will save that and be done. Next. And deploy that setting, and we're good. Okay, so that's actually going out to the setting. Now, other options. So now here's an interesting one. Open Update Management Center. Well, I already have the Update Management Center open, and it's in preview. This is that third portal that I was telling you about, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Right? Browse Maintenance Configurations. This, to me, is worded poorly. So I just created my scheduled deployment. It would be better if this were titled Manage Scheduled Deployments or something like that, because then I would know immediately what it is. As it is, I didn't know what this was until I clicked on it. And so now I should see that I have some demo deployments scheduled. So if I want to go in and modify the settings, I can do that, right? And it'll just pull back all the things you saw with the scheduled updates, where I can go through and deal with some of the things that I've configured, right? View and manage machines between resources, etc. All right. So let's bust out of here and get back to dang it, to our update management window. Bam. All right, let's go back into it. That was my fault because I actually closed and reopened the console. I'd paused it for just a second, and so I'd lost the context, so I couldn't just go back to it. But nevertheless, we'll be back there in just a second. Okay, update management. And we'll go back and see what other options we have on our ellipsis. I think the only one remaining is to be able to provide feedback to Microsoft, which is a nice option, right? This allows you to provide directly feedback to us about your experience with updates, and it goes to the team that deals with updates and so forth. This one also I didn't mention, but this just basically takes us back. It's no different from leaving the new experience. It takes us back to using the classic console effectively. So what that leaves us with is this, right? So we talked about the classic portal. We have shown this portal, which is your Update Management Center, which is in preview. So if I click on this, it's going to show me, again, the Update Management Center, which is in preview. So this is the console that I envision that I would like to use ultimately if I were trying to administer updates through Azure, right? And so you see, again, it's kind of confusing. So it's the servers, then here's the server, and it's in preview, then it's update preview, and now this is preview. So to me, we have a little bit of cleanup to do. But again, the good news is you can use any of these to get what you need done. The only exception is that for now, you don't have the pre and post script on these last two portals that I've shown you, right? So I'm not going to spend a great deal of time in this one. But what I do want to show you are some of the uniquenesses about this, right? So check for updates was on the previous portal. So this portal also had check for updates. So does the classic portal. If I click check for updates on the other portal, though, it just lets me trigger an assessment for the machine that was in focus when I came in. Whereas this one allows me to choose any of the machines I want to. So this to me is just easier because I can choose to trigger an assessment right now. So generally speaking, you'll just let assessments happen automatically, but you can trigger them at any point manually if you'd like, right? And this just gives you an easier way to do that versus having to click into machine after machine after machine individually to take a look, right? Another thing that I want to, I think, show you here is one-time updates if it works for me. Yeah. Okay. So there may be newer updates available. This is good. I'm glad it's there. Right. If you click on install one-time updates here, and we recognize that we don't have the most current state of the machine, then we're going to tell you that here. Right. So at least it gives you a heads up that you should probably do an assessment on the machine before you continue. So that, again, minor addition. The rest of the stuff is very much the same. So I won't dig into it. I do want to show you the dashboard here. So to me, this dashboard is almost worth the effort to use Update Management by itself. This is a really cool dashboard to me, unified, right? So total machines will show you how many are Azure virtual machines, how many are ARC enabled virtual machines. And then if we scroll on down, a few details. So first of all, again, this is my lab. And so I have two machines running in my lab and active for updates. But it shows you I have, out of 12 machines, I have 2 of them where updates are available, right? And so that matches exactly what I'm working with, the one Windows machine and one Linux machine. I could go by update classification if I wanted to, and this dashboard would change as I went through, but I don't need to. Here's patch orchestration configuration of Azure virtual machines. So I have one default image for OS orchestrated, blah, 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 right? So this is specifically for Azure only. And so that's why you see the 6 VMs there. Scrolling on down, update installation status. So I see there's total two total installation runs. I've got 1 failure. I've got 1 in progress. So again, I pushed this to the Azure and the Linux machine. I'm not sure which one is which. Doesn't matter to show you this right now. Let's see. Can I even? Yeah, let's see what this is. So failed. So this will show me what has failed for whatever reason. So I don't have anything yet. Let's see, by maintenance run. No, I guess I don't have anything bubbled up yet. Not a shock because it's just happening even as I speak, right? But either way, so that's a nice little option to be able to see what's going on. So let's scroll back down. Okay, so here we have pending Windows updates. So we have 7 pending updates for one machine, 2 pending updates. 7 pending other updates for the one Windows machine that I have, 2 pending security updates for the one Windows machine that I have. And then for Linux, I've got 21. And so 21 updates pending. So those are still likely in flight right now. So whenever I go to the Windows machine, I may or may not see them. And if I don't see them, then I may hang around for a little bit, but maybe not. We'll see. Certainly won't make you wait if that needs to happen. So let's go look at the Windows VM. All right, so bring the VM in. So this is my one Windows server. And so if I go, first of all, you see updates are available. So I just did a one-time update install. And so that triggered some things to happen here. It's still in progress for sure. I can click on view updates if I want to and be able to see what's out there, what's happening on the device, pending install, different things, right? So things did download and so forth, right? But if I look at my device here as well, and I go to my C drive, Windows, and then I go down to the software distribution folder, and I look at downloads, then you can see that I've downloaded a bunch of patches today based on the system clock today, right? And so these are the ones I just triggered, and this is pretty close to the time that I triggered it, I think, looking at it, about 20 minutes ago or so, that these started downloading. So that's enough for me. I know that this is taking action based on at least seeing that. And I wanted to show that to you, right? So setting up in the console is one thing. Seeing it actually happen on the devices is another. So I expect those updates to install a bit later after I get through recording this. But I do know that that caused them to download, right? So that is a walkthrough of updates with update management, applying both to Azure ARC and to or Azure ARC enabled machines, and also native Azure machines. So if you care to manage updates on your Windows and Linux servers, if you want to do that across the estate that you have, whether it's Azure native or non-Azure native, that's cool. If you're using another product like Configuration Manager to manage your servers, definitely not trying to talk you out of that. Definite advantages to having Config Manager if that's in place. But if you are looking for a solution other than Config Manager, maybe just to take the servers off and do their own thing, or just to include Linux servers or whatever, Azure ARC definitely is something to take a look at. So hopefully this helps. We will talk about other pieces of server management for Azure ARC in upcoming sessions. So for now, we will put a ribbon around this one, and we will see you next time.